Paul Hannaby's with us this evening. Paul, are you ready to do your demonstration yet?
Yeah, I'm ready when you are ready.
Okay, we're going to do a little demo with Paul Hannaby. And Paul has joined us for a while. I'm trying to get it in here. I can't spotlight him for some reason. Okay, now I got you, Paul.
Okay. Okay, yeah, we're just going to do a short demo on making a tool handle. I don't know about you, but I quite often buy tools just like this and make my own handles. I prefer it that way. I mean, that one there is an off-the-shelf 3/8 spindle gauge, and for me, I've got pretty big hands, so that's a little bit on the thin side for me. It's okay, but I prefer something a little bit chunkier. I mean, there's an example of what would probably make for myself. This is a handle I've made myself, and you can see the difference in size there. It's a little bit fatter there and gives me something sort of decent size to grab hold of. Lengthwise also it's slightly longer, but there again we've got a 1/2 inch gauge in that one instead. I think with many tools I make my own handles, like this one here, it's a Sorby hollowing tool. And I bought this one secondhand on eBay, and I noticed on the listing it had a cracked handle, but I thought I can fix that. So I bought this and got it for a good price, and just turned another handle. So saved myself a packet on that one. Generally, I'll use ash for the handles. It's always been regarded as a good material for the handles. It's quite a durable wood, resists splitting, and it's pretty tough. So that's what I'm going to be using. Here's a piece which I'm going to make a handle to fit this 1/2 inch spindle gauge. It's about 12 inches long and approximately 1 3/4 inches square. I'll probably end up round about 1.5 inches with that. Just cut square. That's all I've done with it so far. So I need to mark that out, and the first thing I'm going to do is drill a hole in it. So let me just move to here. So I'll just move this on the lathe so you can see what it is. So to mark the end out, it doesn't need to be done precisely. If you want, you can do that corner to corner and get an accurate center, but I just sort of lock my fingers together, put the pencil in the middle, and just do that. So I end up with effectively a little box in the middle. And then to mark that, I've got an automatic center punch here. These cost a few pounds at the hardware stores. I'll put that in the middle of that box that I've just created and just make a little indentation. Same on the other end. I mean, that's dark, so it's difficult to see the pencil lines on the camera, but yeah, you can just about see where it is. I'll do the same that end. So I mark the centers. Next thing is to drill the hole. So I'm going to switch to the other lathe. I've got that one set up for the drilling. I've got a chuck here that will hold this blank. So if I put the piece of wood loosely in the chuck, as I've got a drill there, I'll just center it against that. That's there. So I can tighten the chuck up. And I'll just withdraw the drill. I'll set the blade speed slow, so when I turn that on, it's going to run pretty slow. And before I turn that on, I'll just grab my visor as well. One thing to bear in mind with drilling on the lathe like this, the drill chuck here is on a Morse taper arbor. So there's a chance that will twist, and also a chance it could pull out of there when I withdraw the drill after drilling the hole. So one thing to watch is prevent that from happening by holding on to the chuck when you withdraw. So I'll just mention that now in case I forget later. And depth-wise, I've got here the tool, and I've put a pen mark on it here. That's how far it's going to go into the handle. With a round bar tool like this, the rule of thumb is 5 times the diameter. So that's a 1/2 inch diameter, so I'm aiming at roughly 2.5 inches. So I'll put that up against the drill And I'm just going to put a chalk mark on the drill so I can see where the hole needs to go to. And I'll go just a little bit farther than that, but that's just marking where I need to drill to. So I run the lathe fairly slow, around about 500 RPM. And I'll hold on to the chuck as I go here. Lock the tailstock down so it stays where I put it. And I'll just go slowly at first, just let the drill center itself. And then once it's in, I'll speed up a little bit. And I'll go in so far and I'm feeling resistance, so I'm going to withdraw the drill. But when I withdraw, I'm keeping hold of the handle, hold of the chuck. So there's no chance of it separating from the quill on the Morse taper. So I'll just remove some of the shavings, push it back in, lock the tailstock again, and drill a little bit further. You can see there I've got to that chalk mark now, but I'll go, let's say, another ½ inch, because I'll probably take a little bit of wood off the end anyway. So I'll go a little bit farther than I need to. Still holding on to the chuck, withdraw that, and that's the drilling done. That drill's going to be a bit warm now, so I'll leave it where it is to cool down. So I'm done on this lathe now. I can take that away and switch to the other one. So we'll come back to the other lathe. I've got that hole in the end now, ready to roll and marked on the other end. I always drill the hole first. I think that's the easiest way to do this, because then you can center your blank on the hole and you know your handle's going to be concentric. The other thing which I'm going to need for this, which I haven't mentioned, is a brass ferrule. Yeah, that's the one. These I buy. I mean, one of our tool manufacturers, Ashley Isles, sells the brass ferrules at the tool show, and they cost a few pence each. You can see here, I've got different sizes. That one's a recycled one off a carving tool or something, but these two are new ones, I think. So that's the one I'm going to use. So I've got the ferrule I need. You can use copper pipe plumbing fittings. In the past, I've even sort of recycled a length of steel tube that was a wardrobe hanger in an old wardrobe that was being thrown away. So and I looked at that and I thought, yeah, that's about the right size for some of the ferrules I needed. So as long as it's a strong enough tube and about the size you need, then that's all you need. I mean, here, if I put the tool against the ferrule, you'll see roughly the sort of the size difference between the two. I mean, I've got a ½ inch tool, and that's probably close to an inch. So we've got, it's a little bit less. It's almost a ½ of an inch each side of the tool, between the tool and the ferrule there. So there's enough metal there to hold it in place, and enough wood to support the tool. So I've got my centers marked, so I can put that straight in on the lathe. Bring my tailstock in. I'm supporting that just on a conical center in the hole. Give that enough turns to engage with the 4-prong drive center and lock the tool close in place. So first thing I need to do is just rough that down. And you can see there, my tool rest isn't quite long enough. So just to make life slightly easier, grab a longer one. I've got one that's just a bit longer, so that makes life easier. If I didn't have a tool rest long enough, I would overhang it one end, turn as far as I could, then move it the other end. But here I've got a rest that I can set up to allow me to do all that in one go. When I've set this where I want it, it's about there, lock it in place, spin the piece of wood. I always make a practice of spinning that away from me. If I go the other way and forget to move my thumb, it hurts. So I'll go that way. So the first thing I need to do with this is to rough it down to a cylinder. And to do that, I've got a 3/4 inch roughing gauge here, spindle roughing gauge, fairly straightforward. And that's all I'm going to do first, is just rough that down to a cylinder. So just taking the corners off. Again, I'll set the lathe speed slow, start that up and build the speed up. My normal practice is just to stand out of the way as I wind that speed up. So if I've forgotten anything and that comes off the lathe, I'm not in the firing line. But once I've got it up to a working speed, then at that point, I'm happy to stand in front of it. And with a sub 2-inch blank I've got here, I'll go up to the sort of maximum speed on this range, which is just under 2000 RPM, I think. So first thing I'm going to do is to rough this down. And to do that, I'm going to start on the wood here and cut towards the corner, rather than starting on the corner and cutting in. If you cut in on the corner, there's a danger you'll splinter off the corners, and also at the point where the tool contacts the wood, you've got no bevel contact, so it's effectively out of control at the point when it starts to cut the wood. So it's better to cut on the wood here, and at that point I've got the handle too low to cut, and the bevel's holding the edge off the tool. So, but I've got the bevel controlling the cut is the main thing. And then I lift the handle till I get the cut, push it to the end, and then I'll come back a little bit farther than where I started and do the same again. And with each cut, just going a little bit farther and cutting all the way to the end. So I'm effectively cutting a taper at this stage, but we can sort that out when we get to the end. And now I'm close to the other end, I'll just cut to the other end. So I've knocked off the worst of the corners, and now I can just use the roughing gauge to go end to end, continue to take those corners away. And you can see the gap between the rest and the piece of wood has opened up quite a bit. So it makes sense to move that in to maintain control. The bigger the gap between the rest and the wood, the less control you've got. And I've virtually got to the point there where the flats are gone. There's a little bit there, and just a little bit there, but I'm almost at the stage where all the flats are gone. So that just needs a little bit more work to finish off. So this end's got the hole in. I'm not going to worry about those flats, that they will come out when I do the shaping of the handle. And size wise, that's probably just a little bit too fat for me to hold, so I'll take a little bit more water off that. But initially, I'm not going to worry about that. My first job is to get the wood down to the size of the ferrule and make effectively a spigot at the end for the ferrule. What I'm going to do initially is just size the outside of the ferrule, knowing that that's going to be a little bit too big, but at least it just gives me an easy measurement and an easy place to aim for. So I'll pick up either a parting tool, not just a simple straight parting tool, or if you use the beading and parting tool like this. Either's fine. Both will do the job. So whichever you prefer, really. I'm going for a wide-ish spigot. That's fine. But I can see on the end here where this sort of dark end was, there's a couple of little cracks there. So I'm going to allow a bit that I'll just cut off. So I'm going to over sort of lengthen the ferrule for that reason. So I'll use my beading and parting tool, start to turn that down, and I'll bring my calipers in. And these are nicely rounded on the tips, so I can put that against the wood while it's running without it digging in and causing any problem. So I'm now at the point where I'm down to that size. I'll extend it lengthwise by doing another cut to the same diameter. And just check that against the ferrule. I want a bit more, plus I said I was going to take a bit off, so we'll go around that way. So lengthwise, let's just put that up to give me an idea of the length. I've got the length of the ferrule and then a little bit of slack on the end. I think I probably need to take a bit more than that if I can see this crack's extending halfway down that ferrule. So I'll go a little bit farther, and I may have to just extend the hole as well. But now I have a working hole, I can drill that by hand afterwards, so I'm not worried about the hole too much at the moment. So that's the initial sizing of that. Obviously that's too big. I'm hoping it's too big. If I've done this right, then I've sized that for the outside diameter of the ferrule, not the inside diameter, but that's where I need to be. So to size it, the easiest way is to cut a taper on the end. So I'm just going to cut a bit of a taper, and then I can withdraw the blank from the mountings. Bear in mind that these ferrules, if it's a proper ferrule, it's usually got a bevel on one end. That's so it's easier to put on. But just for the sizing, I'm going to use the other end where it's square, because all I want to do is push it on there quite firmly and just spin it against the wood, and that leaves a burnish mark on the end here. I don't know how well you can see that, but it has left a bit of a burnish mark. Well, it's not a very straight one, so I'll just try that again. Okay, so I've got my burnish mark there. I think you can probably just about make out a shiny section roughly there where my finger is. So that's where I'm going to aim to cut. Just a little bigger than that. It's just as with always, don't go too far too quick. Creep up on it. So if I take this down to my burnish mark, which is about there, and then I can check the fit. If I've overshot, I can always lose that bit. That is a little bit loose, so yes, it's easy to get carried away and take too much off. So I'll cut. That's the bit I'm going to cut off anyway. So I'm not lost anything there. So I'll cut another bit, just a little bit fatter. Try it on that, and that's oversized, but it's a snug fit on that taper. So that's pretty much where I want to be. Made it back on. Oh, splitting the end there, so I over tightened it. So I can take this down to the diameter I've got there. And if you want to be doubly sure that the size you've got there, if you set your dividers, your calipers to that, you can check it as you go down. I've got a very slight taper on that. So if I just put a little bit more at this end, straighten it out a bit, and that's the taper done. What I do is put a pencil mark against the blank, so you can see that. Just give me 2 seconds.
While Paul is over at the bandsaw, thank you folks for putting in your name and your town into our chat. I see we had about 40.
So that's shorten the ferrule, or shorten the spigot that the ferrule will fit onto, and that's actually a bit loose. Should be tighter than that. Never mind. Yeah, I think I've just turned a little bit too much away there, but never mind.
That's not too loose. You were
Next
leaving
step.
glue.
Sorry, can you say it again?
I said it wasn't too loose. You were just leaving room for glue.
I've probably got enough length to handle there if I wanted to just extend the ferrule a little bit. So yeah, I'll do that. I'll just extend the ferrule a bit further and leave it a bit wider. So we'll just check that's going to go on. Needs just a little bit more off. Right, that should do it. Just a little bit more, I think. I'll go back to square one here, aren't I? And overshoot again, but hopefully not. Right, we'll go with that. And again, I'll just trim that off on the bandsaw to the right length. It's easier to do it while this handle's straight before I shape it. So that's what I'm aiming to do here. Just take that bit off. Okay, that's good. Right, so shaping the handle now. I mean, I go for the simple shape like the handle I showed you earlier. So just very simple bulbous shape there and a rounded shape at the end. But you can make these any shape you like. I find that comfortable for me. And I want this end perhaps not quite as fat as the middle, but certainly big enough for me to grab hold of if I want to use the whole length of the handle. So I'm aiming for a comfortable grip for myself. So we'll carry on with that. And in terms of shaping this, you've got a choice of using a sort of normal spindle gauge, let's say a 1/2 inch spindle gauge, something like that. Or on these long sort of shallow curves, you could continue with your spindle roughing gauge and do some of the shaping with this. It's not the ideal tool for tight curves, but if we want to shape this handle, I mean, initially I just want to reduce that diameter a little. So we'll do a couple of passes just to take some bulk away. And then in the middle here, put a bit of a waste. And then at this end, start to shape the front end of the tool. Around that over and likewise back here. So I can do some of the shaping with the spindle roughing gauge, or another tool that works well at this scale is the Continental spindle gauge like this one. So it's a wide flat gauge. I think this is a 3/4 inch 19mm. So I can use that to get these long curves. And the advantage of using a wide tool like this is you get a smooth curve much easier. With a narrow tool, any little movement you make puts little bumps and ridges in the shape, whereas using a longer tool like this avoids that problem. So it's up to you what you use and what you've got, and perhaps a combination is a good way to go. But you can see on this one, it's a little bit more flexible than the spindle roughing edge, because this being the tool it is, it's straight across the end, and when you start to try and put sharper curves in, it's not the easiest tool to control perhaps, but this being a shallower sort of flute and a curved end as well, it gives you that better control over shaping these slightly tighter curves. Now I'm turning the end of this to almost all the way down, just leaving a slight step at the end there, and this section I'll just roughly shape that, blend it into the waist section in the middle, and then a curve at the other end. One thing I am doing here is the convention for the spindle, because all the grain is running along the blank here, to do what they call a supported cut. I'm cutting from the wider section to the narrow, so I'm going from the wide point here to the narrow section, and from the wide point here to the narrow section. You can cut the other way, but you won't get as good a finish. So initial roughing cuts, you could probably break that rule and sacrifice the finish, but to get a better finish at the final stages, certainly cut in the right direction. And this end here, I'm going to finish that with a narrower gouge to get a tighter curve on it. So we'll cut into that section there. I leave the middle section moderately thick as well. I don't want that too thin. For my sort of grip, that's good for me. So I'll switch to a sort of a 1/2 inch spindle gouge now, and just shape the end of the handle. I'm remembering that I've got obviously the marks from the drive center there, so I'm going to leave enough wood to remove to get rid of those tool marks, to get rid of the drive center marks, shall I say. So I'm just bringing my curve in short of the end of the piece of wood to allow me to do that. Right there, that's good. The rest of it, oops, throw that one on the floor. The rest of it, I think I'm happy with the shape, and finish wise, that feels okay. I'm not going to sand it. I never bother with the tool handles that I make for myself. I try and get a reasonably good cut off the tool, and that's it. I don't put finish on them. I don't sand them. They're just straight off the tool, and they're actually quite tactile, I think, and give me a little bit of grip, and it works for me. I mean, if you prefer your handles finished, then by all means sand and put whatever finish you want on them. But I mean, I find that finishing them this way, they develop their own sort of patina over time, and I like the feel of the raw wood, and for me that works. So we'll cut that in a little bit farther. I've got about as far as I can go with a spindle gouge though. I could either stop and cut that off at that point. So if that's the way you want to finish, then there's no problem in doing that. If you want to take it as a little further, then you've always got the option of picking out a skew chisel and getting in tighter with a skew chisel. So I'm using, this one's what they call a continental style skew. It's tapered along its arrows. This is a German made one, and it's got radius corners, so it rolls nice and easily on the rest, and there's no hard corners to drag on the rest, and I find that a nice tool to use, and a nice comfortable tool. So I'm cutting in with the skew at the end of the handle here, down to, I don't know, about an 1/8 of an inch or thereabouts, and I'll stop there, turn the lathe off, and that last little bit I can really just cut into with the lathe stationary and break that off by doing it. And that way you're not risking that popping off the lathe with it still running. So I can just trim the end of that using the skew. And there's the handle ready to go. What I need to do now, just remove the visor, is to fit the ferrule and to fit the tool into the handle. So first put the ferrule in. So find the ferrule, remembering to use the side with the taper, put that against the handle there. That's almost on. I just need to give it a bit of a harder whack. Where do I put the? I've got a bit of waste wood. Well, just another blank bit of wood there. I'll put it against the bit of wood, and I've got a wooden mallet here. So I'll tap my ferrule into place, and that is a good fit now. Good tight fit. So that's the ferrule on. I now need to put the tool in to the handle. So you'll notice the end of this tool has already got a slight bevel round on the end of the shaft. So that should help it get started in the hole. It actually did go in just a little way anyway. I'm going to switch to this camera. So that's as far as I can push it in, but it has at least got it started. So to get that in, what you don't do is hit the sharp end. You can just use inertia. So you can hold the handle and just whack the end of the handle. You can see, here's my pen mark. That's what I'm aiming to get in there. I just remembered I've shortened that hole. So I just want to check I've got enough depth of the hole for the handle to go in as far as I want. If not, I'll just extend the hole before I put the tool in. So I'm just using a depth gauge to mark the depth of the tool. It's 1/8 of an inch short. So I'll just sort that out by drilling by hand. Yeah, with these tool handles, if I've got suitable bits of ash, whether it's a branch, a section of branch or trunk or anything like that, then I quite often just put them to one side with the sort of handle. So that's quite often I try and keep a selection of blanks for making handles with. So I had a quick scan around and found a piece to make this one. So that's pushed in to get it started. From there, as I said, use the inertia of the weight of the actual tool blade itself to get that into the hole. I can see my pen mark here. That should hopefully get as far as the ferrule. But what I will do is whack the handle end, not the tool end, and that should drive itself in just on inertia. So I'll hold it there, just give it a whack, and I can see that is heading in. The pen mark is now there. It's only less than half an inch away, so a couple more whacks, and that's in. Can't see the pen mark anymore. Just give it a couple more taps just to make sure, and that's all the way in, and that's good to go. I just need to sharpen and grind that to my preferred shape, and that's ready to roll. But that's basically where I leave the handle. No finish, no sanding. That's just straight off the tool, and that's how I like it. I just think it's quite nice and tactile like that. Anyone got any questions?
Yeah, Paul. Is there a reason why you would put the ferrule on first before you put the tool in? Would it make more sense to put the ferrule on afterwards?
If that's a good tight fit, then it might be difficult to knock the ferrule in. So that's one reason why I do it first. And secondly, the ferrule is there to stop this handle splitting when you drive the shaft of the tool in. So really, I think you should have the ferrule in place before inserting the tool.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Any other questions?
All right, come on, guys. Some of y'all have tool handles. You don't have any questions?
Hey, the red tool handle, that looks familiar.
The red one, yeah, it's one of the old glazer gauges, yeah.
Yep, I know, I got a
The one I
couple.
was using earlier, the beading parting tool, yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you set the balance for the length of shaft and the handle size? You got a cracked handle that's what you placed on that other one, but how do you set the balance for where your tool length that you have remaining out of the handle?
I mean, in terms of how far you put it in, or
Yes.
how much tool you leave out.
And how long you make the handle
Okay.
from a shaft that you get by off the internet or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a spindle gauge, that roughly 10, 11 inches, I'll just measure it now, it's finished. But that handle end to end now it's just, well, 10 and a half inches. For me, that's a good length for a spindle gauge. Obviously for a bowl gauge, you want a longer handle. So I think that's the other thing with making your own handles. You make the handle as long as you want. And sometimes I buy tools and think, if I put a handle on that, I'd make it longer or shorter or whatever. So you can make it the length you want for the tool you've got. But let me just grab there you go. There's a 1/4 inch bowl gauge to give you a comparison. Handle length. Again, this is one I've made in the past, and it's another 2-3 inches. So yeah, with a bowl gauge, generally you're working on a bigger overhang, and you need a longer handle to compensate for that and maintain control. So you tailor the length of the handle to the length of the tool. I mean, this is probably the extreme example. It's a deep hollowing tool. It's got a scraper on the end, but you can put one of these little pick cutters in the end of it. So on that, I wanted a long handle to give me support. But this one, it's a Sorby tool, and I styled the shape of that on the original. Actually, this is sort of the Sorby pattern. I've more or less copied the shape of the original handle with that one. I even rescued the little brass pin off the end and put that in. I didn't need to cover the drive marks on it. I just used the pin. That's what Sorby do with their handles. Yeah, that's that one. But you can see it's a lot longer because it's designed to be used as a hollowing tool.
Paul?
Thank you.
Paul, you
Welcome.
turn that handle, you put the ferrule on, and you put the tool insert, and you didn't use any type of epoxy or glue or anything. I'm really surprised how tight it was with you doing that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much down to getting the right size hole to start with, really. This is a 1/2 inch tool, but I mean, I measured that with my digital calipers, and although it says it's a 1/2 inch, it's just over, actually. It's 12.8 millimeters, or 12.9, 12.876. Yeah, so it's just over 1/2 inch. A 1/2 inch would be 12.7 millimeters. So it's sort of 2/10 of a millimeter over. And the drill I've used, I can't actually see the measurements on this. It's 0.5 millimeter L. So the difference between the drilled hole and that's enough to give that a reasonable grip. So aim for 0.5 millimeter, let's say.
Very good fit.
The beauty of that you can do that test fit by drilling a hole in nice wood. And
as well. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've got a couple of other tools here yet to make handles for it. I'll just show you these. But again, these were bought. This one's actually a round bar roughing gauge, but you can see it's got a bevel grind on the end to assist fitting in the handle. And here's like a 3/8 spindle gauge, and again, the end that goes into the handle has got that bevel ground on it already. But if it hasn't, you can grind that yourself on your grinder, and that just eases the start of the tool into the handle.
Paul, on behalf of the whole group, we want to thank you tonight for your demonstration, sir. And we'll be,
Welcome.
Hey, what about
We'll be-
removing the tool? I've seen it some do it.
Sorry, could you say that again?
What about if you needed to remove the tool? Say you got a handle that's too short for what you want.
Yeah,
You really don't want to throw the handle away or destroy it.
yeah. I mean, there has been occasions when I've reused a handle, and probably on the second fitting, yes, it's going to need epoxy, because once you've expanded that hole once, it's not going to grip quite as tightly. But you could get that off. I mean, if you wanted to reuse the handle, really, you've got to hold that shaft firmly and whack against the ferrule. I mean, one way, if you're going to throw the shaft away, then it doesn't matter if you mark it. So you could put that into an engineering vise, so you've got a good grip on that. And what I would probably try is if you can find an old spanner that just fits that shaft, so a 1/2-inch spanner, drop it over there. You've got something to hammer against, and hopefully you can drive the tool out of the handle by doing that. So something that's giving you a sound base there against the ferrule to be able to use a hammer to knock it out and to separate the two. If I didn't care, I'd probably just split the handle off and get it off that way. It's easier, but obviously if you want to reuse the handle, then you can't do that. But yeah, that I've removed tools before. Like for example, I had a gouge and it wore down to the point where it was too short for practical use. So, but I like the handle, so I reused it. I had another gouge that I thought, yeah, same size, and I got the handle off by putting something. I can't remember what I used now. It was a long time ago, but I put something over the ferrule that I could knock against it. And as I said, the shaft of the tool, what was left was scrapped anyway, so it didn't matter if I put that in an engineer's vise and made a few marks on it. So I held it firmly in a vise and knocked the tool off by putting something across there.
Yeah, and I guess if you had another smaller tool, you could put a plug in it and then re-drill it for the smaller tool. You'd probably glue it in.
Yeah, potentially. You've obviously got to get your sizes quite a good fit, but yeah, as long as it was a reasonable fit, as suggested earlier, epoxy's also a good filler of gaps. So yeah, you can always do that. I think the one I epoxied in.
I've used leather.
got
I've
any
used
more
leather to
stuff.
put on the side of the tool to keep from tearing it up when I put it in an engineering vise. Put some leather on it and tighten it down, and leather.
Yeah, that's true. You could. Yep. Old bicycle inner tubes are very good for that, aren't they? Done that in the past, or even old car inner tubes. Yeah. You just wrap it around, and then you're not damaging the metal you're clamping on. But yeah, I mean, if you were going to throw away the stub that you were taking out anyway, then you don't need to worry about that, do you?
again, Paul, we want to thank you for your demonstration tonight. We'll be calling on you again. You've offered, and we're going to take you up on that
no
offer.
problem.
And appreciate the demonstration on handles. I have some calls came in this week, and one guy suggested if your handle twist in your hand, say you put a good finish on it or whatever it turns. Do you know what this is? Most of you guys are of the age where you see this pretty often. It's called Coban. That's what we're talking about, Matt. This is Coban.
Thanks.
And they sell it and they use it in the hospital, and it only sticks to itself. So it won't stick to my hand, but and I've got a couple of fine turning tools that I've got this wrapped around, and when it overlaps it, it binds to itself. And all you have to do is seal one end with a little piece of tape, and it makes a nice, soft, grippy handle. And if you wonder how you're going to get this, you can get it at the hospital, or you go to Amazon and look up COBAN, Coban. It comes in colors. For some reason, my wife uses it for sewing. We have every color in the world in it. And that wasn't hers. I got that this morning when I had to give up blood. All righty. Thanks again, Paul. We
Hey,
appreciate
Eddie.
it tonight. Yes, ma'am. Hey.
Hey, they also sell that at Tractor Supply or Rural King because they use it for animals, and it is much cheaper to get it from Tractor Supply or Rural King than it is anywhere else.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say too. They wrap horse legs with it and everything else.
Yes.
It's a
Yeah,
wrapping
like
for
only
that.
It's like $7.99 for a pack of 4, and yeah, it comes in really cool colors and stuff.
Yep, all
Especially
different
for
colors. You know, pinks and oranges and reds and stuff, blues.
You
Might
had
be helpful.
What's
It
that, Doug?
might be helpful for people that got those cold workshops that have metal handles, even if wood, it might help them be a little bit warmer to work with and have a better
Wait.
grip. You know?
Way ahead of you, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I always prefer wooden handles myself.
Way ahead of you, Jeffrey.
Solution for cold workshops, move south.
Do
I
you
got
ever
heat
put
and
set
air
screws in those so that you can take the handle right out?
Say again, Jack.
I was wondering if you ever drilled those and put set screws in them so that you can unloose the screws and take the handles right out. I don't have a tool to my name that I can't take out of the handle.
Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
No, I was wondering if Paul is still with us.
For me,
Yeah,
for me,
there,
sorry, go
there
on.
are a few tools I use in handles with either colics or grub screws or whatever. But a lot of things like the simple carving gauges, etc., simple spindle gauges, etc. I just like them in wooden handles. So I think my preference on tools like that is for a wooden handle. So I just make a handle for each tool as I buy them. But the problem I've got now, I've just made another one, another gauge, and I've not got enough holes in my tool rack, so I need a new tool rack now.
It's always something. You know the deal.